Sometimes Zoom chooses the camera that's on my laptop, which is folded up. And so you're sitting there looking at the darkness.
Is the darkness looking back though, Jacques?
I mean, it's Wednesday, so kinda.
Yeah.
Are you in the Southern Hemisphere?
No, I'm in New York, but I'm from there.
Yeah, it's super
You
bright
don't
out today.
sound it. Don't sound at all like you're from there.
Around the place, you know. It's a different background, David.
I'm out on my deck. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, why not?
There we go.
I gotta ask Dustin, what's your dog's name?
I got two dogs. One's name is Zoe, the other is Arlo.
Yeah. You have, I think, two microphones. Oh,
Are you hearing me in double again?
yeah, we're hearing spooky robot voice.
Very strange.
Actually-
I'll be right back.
Although actually, if I'm technical, it's more like galactic ruler of the universe voice.
I, for one, am on Team Galactic Ruler of the Universe voice, but
Yeah.
it's probably not the best for the whole meeting.
I mean, if Dustin is the galactic ruler of the universe, he needs to delegate more.
How about now? Is my voice better now? I mean, as
Yeah.
good as it usually is. Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, share the screen. All right, sorry for the delay, folks. Yeah, please make sure to add your name at the top of the agenda here, and I'll share a link to the doc as well. And this will be important later if you're not sure why I'm asking you to do that. All right, let's kick it off. So first, I want to welcome anyone that's not been here before. Give an opportunity for folks to go around, just introduce themselves. Is there anyone here that'd like to introduce themselves?
Yeah, I can say hi. I haven't come here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hey Laurent.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lawrence. I'm in the Google open source team, same as Bob and Apu and Dustin. So I work on Scorecard and Salsa and sometimes package managers. So just wanted to say hi and see what everyone's working on.
Welcome. Anybody else?
I go.
Hi all.
Oh,
Yeah.
many people. I'll pop
Look at
in
all the
go
new
first.
friends.
Yeah, let's start with Sam.
Um,
Hey, Vicky.
Hi, I'm on just about every other call, so a lot of you already know me, so hi, but this is my first time making it to this call because it wasn't on the calendar, because it's not official, so I feel like I've gotten into some sort of super secret speakeasy working group, and it's lovely to be here, and yeah, that's it.
Vicky, who do you represent?
Oh, I'm currently at Wipro.
All right, and I
WIPRO.
think that, great. Betty, I think you were next.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Betty. I'm on the Ruby Conventions team at Shopify, and here with Jacques Chester.
Cool. Welcome. Eddie, I think.
Hi, I'm Eddie Zaneski. I work on the Kubernetes project, and I have just joined the team over at ChainGuard, and I'm here to support you all however I can. So I think I'll be doing some PyCon sprints in a few weeks. So
Very cool. Octavia.
Hi, I'm Octavia. I'm from Gradle team. I've done some stuff regarding security before, and just looking to find out more about what this is all about.
And anybody else? All right, cool. So yeah, just a reminder, meeting is recorded and this will be posted online sometime shortly after the meeting. We generally will review our action items. We have a couple meeting minutes, notes that we'll go through. I want to start with just going over everything that we said we'd do at the end of the last meeting, which was 2 meetings ago, or 2 weeks ago, sorry. Actually, it looks like a lot of this has gotten checked off already, which is great. I saw Sterling just checked it off. Awesome, perfect. Filling that survey out for Gradle. And I started a write-up on how PyPI is implementing its 2-factor mandate. And I think, was it Jacques who was asking me for a link to something like this? Please feel free to well, actually, I might need to externalize this in order for you to link to it. But there is a write-up there about sort of just everything that's gone into that so far and the current status. And then I guess maybe Miles, you take a look at that and we can write something up similar for NPM if there's something that exists already. Is there anything else regarding action items that I'm missing that we did? This is great. I'm glad we checked everything off.
Octavia, did you have something about the action items, or is it just a hand from before?
I think that's an old hand. Okay, great. I'm going to move on. So moving on to Jacques and Bob, talking about our updates to the working group and the README charter, etc.
You want me to do this, Bob, or do you want to do it?
You go
He's
ahead.
shaking his head, so I guess it's me. Okay, so as many of you may recall, the very early sort of prehistory of this group was going to be a casual call with about 5 people, 18 people showed up. And from this, we learned that there is a need and a desire for a working group where different software repos can get together, swap notes, solve common problems, and so on. We decided that we'd do that under the umbrella of the OpenSSF because a lot of us know it well, and it has a process for forming work groups. Part of that process is we need to create a repository, which has been created. We need to add a README and a charter. The README we've got, if you look at the repository, that's a link to it there. The charter is currently a pull request. And the reason for that is it needs to be adopted. And this brings us elegantly to 2 questions. The first one is that the charter requires us to give a list of maintainers with a capital M, where maintainers is defined as the people who get to vote on a technical steering committee. Now, this is mostly, I think, a formality, but it's something that we need to bootstrap the paperwork. The main thing to bear in mind is that if we change our minds about how it should be done later, that's relatively straightforward. the people who are listed as maintainers can vote to change how it all works, change the paperwork, that sort of thing. Is there a chance we can, if we're not already there? Yeah, okay, so you can see the pull request there. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see a comment where I've given a proposed list of maintainers to bootstrap it. This list is based on attendance from previous meetings. That spreadsheet just has a little bit of extra flavor for why those people and what the rules were for sort of choosing people, which was basically preference towards folks who are active maintainers or operators of a software repository, or people who have been organizing the group to date. I see that, Vicky, you have your hand up.
Just quickly, maybe I missed it. You mentioned technical steering committee, and this group is not doing that, right?
No,
It was brought up in an earlier call.
It's come up in several places. Yeah, so it's come up in several places. This is one of the things. So to give some more context, the reason we're at this stage is we were hoping, having now gone through 5 meetings of this informal group, to have qualified for the blessing of the Technical Advisory Council, which is sort of like the leading technical group for OpenSSF, who give blessings for new working groups. And part of that process is we need to have the paperwork in order. And this is the charter that gets provided as the template. I'll say that I don't have religion about 2 things. One, about the exact wording of the charter. Like, the technical steering committee that's described in it is mostly dead letter in terms of how we actually work. I see it as a guardrail for when things break down and we can't make an actual decision, like by consensus. And second is, I don't have religion about that list of names. If you continue further in that discussion, Shashank asks whether we can include an academic. And I noted that if we were, then Marina easily qualifies based on her attendance to date. David, you're muted, mate.
Sigh. You'd think I'd learned by now. So I know Bob Calloway's on the call, so he can speak up some other things. But that you're right. No working group currently uses a TSC.
I think you're very faint, or is it just mine?
Oh, thank you. How about now? Is this better?
Good.
Yes.
Excellent.
Better.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. Okay, I'll stick this a little closer. All right, so no working group currently uses a TSC. I got comment from Ava, and I think this is reasonable, that I think what the TAC primarily wants immediately is the scope and who the leads are. And Bob, you can overrule that, but I think that's probably what the TAC most needs right now. Tell me if I'm wrong, please.
No, I mean, I think, you're correct, David. I'm trying to pick my words carefully here. You're correct. I think what we were trying to avoid was trying to block forward progress on new working groups or new projects based on some of the churn around the verbiage there. I think here we have a document that has been reviewed over several meetings. We've got that now as the README in this particular repo. And I think the charter just reinforces those same messages. So I think in this case, I think the list of maintainers, as Jacques had called out, is sufficient to demonstrate activity and diversity across a multitude of different audiences here, which is really what the spirit of what we're looking for, I think, from a TAC perspective.
Can I just get a clarification on the list of maintainers? Is it like some subset of everyone that's attended more than 1 or 2 meetings?
Yes.
So why not just make it? Yeah, go ahead.
Why a subset? Very good question. Mostly because if things do come to a vote, there are certain levels of majority that are required for different scenarios, or to become quorate if you need to take a vote. So it's 50% of people eligible to vote have to be present to be quorate if it comes to a vote. And to amend it, it takes 2/3 of people to come to a vote. So it's a question of tractability rather than the sense that I want to exclude anyone. I don't. It's mostly just the mechanics of corralling a bunch of people who have lots of things to do.
So maybe we can say, like, at least in the instance of Marina and maybe other folks, if people feel like they really want to be a member and they can make the commitment to show up and not destroy our ability to achieve quorum, then I don't see any reason why we shouldn't add others to this list.
Yeah, and it's mostly that I literally do not expect that this will, in an ideal world, ever come up again. If we're all just like, because anyone who sort of says, you know, this is bullshit, there's your recording, Sol. Anyone who says that can just peace out. Like, I'm not saying that as a threat. I'm saying that as there's nothing binding. Like, we're quite explicit about that in the README. Like, this group is not meant to be a governing body. It's not meant to be binding. It's not meant to govern or rule or lay down rules or standards or anything like that. So the mechanism is there and we can amend it. But if the consensus today is that, like, we're not comfortable with it or we're not au fait with it, I'm perfectly happy to put it off and throw it back to the TAC for their sort of deep cogitation. It might be that they decide that the README is sufficient because it's pretty clear. It lays out pretty clearly what we do and why. Miles.
Yeah, like I will try to not get too much into process here, but over in OpenJS, we have a couple different solutions that we've come up with for this kind of problem. The problem of, like, you need, like, people who are responsible, arguably. Like, if you're going to charter something, you need someone who owns that, but then you also kind of like want people's names on a list. If there's not going to be like a ton of decisions made, but you don't want to like have a deadlock every time you have to make the occasional decision, there are a couple different solutions that we've explored there, including having, you know, like 2 different kinds of membership. One which is like a voting member and one which is like a non-voting member. We'll usually pick better names than that. But at a high level, one thing that we've done in Node.js, at least, to explore, to like make this easier, is allowing working groups to kind of like have their own governance in their charter so they can manage the way in which they're kind of like self-governing. I don't know if that's something that the OpenSSF is kind of set up to do. But if we find that, like, you know, the structure that's there doesn't really fit or represent, like, I'm happy to bring a couple different ideas of how I've seen this solved. Because I can imagine, for example, like, I work for a company, I'm going to go put a number of hours into this thing, having my name on a list somewhere that I can show a manager or show someone at the company, like, shows that I'm a valuable member of this thing. And so I think that there's probably some value to poking at this, but at the risk, I don't want to spend too much time on it today, but I'm happy to bring some solutions that I've explored there in the past if it's helpful.
Yeah, the feeling I'm getting is that there isn't an appetite for a quick approval and then moving on to the next item. This is based on people who've spoken so far. I might have a wrong reading of the room. My telepathogram is on the blink. So it may be actually that we hold off on it, throw it to TAC and see what they have to say. But I would note, just in passing, it does at the moment define multiple classes of participant. So there is a sort of like a contributor / committer level, and the capital M maintainers are really there for the times that a vote needs to be taken. Bob.
Yeah, if the prevailing opinion is that we want to defer the conversation, then I certainly would support that. My personal preference would be that, again, to reiterate that this is totally fungible, totally flexible. We're not trying to be exclusionary by any stretch of the imagination. This is more meant to just establish a baseline and such that we can iterate. And I think we would encourage input on modifying the charter appropriate, whether that's from Miles, your experience, or from others. I think that's certainly welcome. It's just we don't want to end up in a situation, in my view, where we perpetually are stuck in this limbo land of not being officially something, if people don't want to spend the time and energy right now to go solve this problem. So if I would say, like, I would almost call for like almost an informal, like, if you have an objection to proceeding today with a vote, then it might be nice to either put that in the chat just to kind of gauge a sense of where we stand as a group on this. And if there are, then, you know, like I said, great, we'll defer it to work offline and come back at the next meeting. Otherwise, if we have consensus now, then I would just go ahead and proceed. I did check based on the proposed list of maintainers. I think we do have quorum, quote unquote, per the proposal here, but Dustin.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, I'm in favor of moving forward as well. I just kind of had a clarifying question, but I want that to be construed as like, we need to slow down, change the process here. So I'm in favor, and yeah, I agree. Like in the chat, if anyone else is like +1 on just moving forward and doing a quick vote so we can like create a charter and get approved as a formal working group, let us know. And if you're not, please say -1 or something to that effect.
And then just really quickly, my aversion there was more to like designing governance live on a call, not anything
Sure,
to
yeah.
do with what we're moving towards here.
Yeah, because we got a lot to get through today. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on this.
Okay. It seems like
This stuff is
consensus
boring. I never want to talk about it again.
Yeah, and I would like to do less of this and do more talk about software repositories. So. I don't see any -1s or zeros or anything like that. So let's do it.
So Dustin, just a point of clarification, when you say just do it, are you asking for the people on that list to go +1 the PR so that we can merge it? Or are you calling for a verbal vote? What are you calling for here?
Yeah. Like I don't know what is the process, Bob, you as on the TAC? Like, what would you like to see as a result of our vote? You want +1s on the PR? I think that would be acceptable to me.
Most transparent process that doesn't force people to go back and watch a YouTube video to figure it out.
Yeah.
So
Yep, great.
that's what I would say.
So yeah,
if we see enough +1s, then we'll merge it today, and then we can take it from there.
All right, let's do that. Or approvals of the PR may be more appropriate. And here's the link to that, just for everyone who's on that member list. Okay. David, do we need to discuss some more things here about the process for the approval?
Absolutely not. It's more of a, no, we're done.
Okay. But Miles, you had a point about meeting times.
Yeah, this is just a small one. Like once we charter and we're a working group, it would be great if we could use a doodle poll or something to get the group of people that are participating and pick maybe some rotating times that fit people's schedules. I know a couple folks who wanted to attend that haven't been able to. And it's not like, well, we're in this stage, it wasn't really worth pushing, but I just want to advocate for those folks who couldn't be here today because of the times.
Sounds good. I think we can do that. And I have heard that like our EMEA friendly time is a little too EMEA friendly perhaps. So we can definitely revisit that. But thank you for bringing that up. Cool. So yeah, assuming that we are going to become an actual working group, I've drafted an announcement to be posted to the OpenSSF blog, and Jacques has provided a lot of commentary and edits on that as well. I want to open that up to the group to review as well, just so that it's not a surprise to anyone. This would be posted at some point after the TAC approves the working group, and I'd welcome anyone who wants to provide comments here, edits. If you want to put your name on the byline as well. If it's not getting too long, maybe we should just make it the working group. But yes, this is the announcement that will go out once it's up. Any questions about that? This is like per request of the OpenSSF staff as well. Okay. Oops, sorry, I'll switch my screen back so people can see the notes. So yeah, moving on, I also had a quick update on behalf of Brandon, and actually, Zach, are you here? Do you want to give this instead?
I have a couple of items later on, so why don't you do it so we don't have to listen to me talk too much.
Absolutely. That's fine. I'm talking a lot too, but that's okay. So yes, so we have this survey that we had started a few meetings back about essentially features that exist across all of these ecosystems and the level of support and presence of them in the various package managers, indexes, that kind of thing. This now includes Python and Node. Thank you to Miles for doing the Node section. So Brandon and Zach have added a couple additional features here. So if you filled this out before for your ecosystem, there's some new ones that might be blank that you can go back and they've been highlighted in this lovely magenta color. There's also an additional sheet with additional questions. It just has 2 questions right now. I'm actually, maybe Zach, you can tell me what the end goal here is, what we should expect folks to do with that sheet.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have full context on the additions Brandon made, but I think the idea is that the folks in this call who are going to be filling it out first are sort of our guinea pigs. And we expect these sort of first responses to be quite narrative, and because we don't understand all of the potential, special cases, right? Like there's a lot of interesting stuff per ecosystem. And then I think we may be interested in sort of scaling this up and, coding responses and sort of giving a much snappier, much, less, tell me about your life story type of form in the future. So yeah, so I think for now we're mostly trying to understand what we need to know is sort of the first go around, and then later on we're hopefully going to scale it up beyond the folks just in this call.
Awesome. Thanks for clarifying. And in addition, Brandon and I are working on a blog post just sort of about the survey, asking, sort of highlighting some interesting things about the different ecosystems and calling, we'll draw attention to such a survey in the future. That would go out after the announcement about the working group. So that's down the road, but that's in progress. Any other questions? I see Sterling, you have a hand up.
Yeah, maybe this is a Java kind of ecosystem unique thing. But one of the things that's a little bit difficult trying to answer the questions is that there's it's like the questions are referring to the repository as it's repository, so Maven Central, whatever, versus like a tool that accesses the repository, because some of the questions kind of blend those two things together as like, does like you think about npm, it's
totally.
like the npm registry has one thing, but the npm tool also has some hand in that as well. So I don't have a good suggestion for how to fix that or how to represent that, but that was one feeling I had.
Yeah, I think long run, Brandon and I talked about sort of formally separating those. I think for now it was useful for us to just roll this out, but I think just contort facts into the spreadsheet however makes the most sense to you for your ecosystem. And so I see a couple of languages have sort of split out under the language different columns, and I think that would be really great. But just get the facts in however you can, and I'm volunteering Brandon and Dustin and myself to do the hard work of sort of trolling through those, and then long run we're going to figure out a schema that makes I think that's going to be a little bit cleaner. Does that workable for now, Sterling?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, anything else there about the survey?
Yep. Sorry, I believe I have one comment in here. I think sec 6a, which was, it seemed to combine two different things, right? Like the ability to remove a release that's flagged, and then additionally provide consumers a way to determine a given package is not even malicious. So those seem to be really, I mean, obviously related, but two separate things, right? And I noted that it's fine if it's just one giant thing, but I think Central sort of has one but not the other, so I just mentioning it, which is fine. So sec 6a line 18.
Yeah, I think it's a valid distinction. Like Python also has one and not the other, and
right.
I think some of these ecosystems we want to move towards adding the other as well, so that's why there's a distinction.
Right. Yeah.
Miles.
Yeah, so kind of digging into another one of these, section 8 E, ensure that accounts support the use of multi-factor authentication with SMS and email. I believe that per NIST SP 800-63B, not to get too technical on us all, but I don't believe that email is considered a valid two-factor authentication factor. And SMS itself is also frowned upon as a factor. We don't need to get into specifics on this, but I think that we should probably do a pass on some of these 2FA, the specific language here. And I know that there was a call out for email verification separate from that, or ensuring that accounts use a multi-factor authentication with OTP. But I think that we could probably clean up some of those to be a little bit more specific and make sure that like, we're matching best practices there and not conflating a few things.
Yeah, I think this one specifically is actually problematic. And there's a second one or one later down about enhanced login verification specifically, which I think probably better captures the idea here. So I'll make a note of this and we can revisit. But yeah, sounds good. Thanks for highlighting. Jason, your hand's still up. Okay, cool.
I'll take care of it. Thanks.
Anything else?
Yeah, I guess the last one, the last one, and then I'm done, is number ing1a, and there's a few of these around, like this one was expressiveness of policy. I'm noticing like everyone said no, but like some of these start to like come down to like runtime constraints as opposed to like package registry or tool constraints, because like we can't really stop people from running code. So that I think would also be like, I know we talked before that we've got kind of like language / like package ecosystem kind of conflated, but I think that that's probably worth teasing apart. And I would argue possibly out of scope for this group if we're going to be talking about like language capabilities. But maybe I'm mistaken here.
Yeah, I had a lot of thoughts about this as well, and I think Chester had mentioned you're talking about some sort of certain events that happen at a repository level, right? When something is published or something, and that might feed into a policy or attestations or this sort of thing. But this is one that I felt like was really veering into out of scope for registries or repositories. It's more like we can enable this or interact with this, but it's kind of up to dependency managers and other tooling to sort of do some of this.
I guess just an end cap thought here. Maybe it would be good to like spin off just like an out of band call with the people who have been filling this out to just review like these questions and go through this synchronously so it doesn't take up a whole call. Because I feel like we could probably spend an hour just going through the minutia of this.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think also before we had talked about determining what individuals would be stakeholders for each of these ecosystems and responsible for answering these questions. So I think making that list, pulling it together would be great. Miles, is that you volunteering to do that?
I guess so.
All right, I just took a small action item to do that, and I'll give it to you. Cool. I want to hand it over to Zach to talk about repository data collection.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm presenting this item on behalf of Marina, who's been leading this effort, but is currently in the air. So we spoke briefly at the last meeting about the possibility of the OpenSSF serving as a central repository for package manager data. This would be useful for a number of reasons. Marina wrote up a proposal and it's linked in line. So we'd love, I think it got sent out, but I'll send it out again. We'd love feedback on that. Generally, the idea is there's a bunch of benefits to researchers, to the OpenSSF itself. Some of the other working groups I think would really benefit from having structured data that they could get at. We may not be the best place for all of it. So there are other organizations. I think libraries.io has a lot of this data structured. deps.dev has a lot of this data structured. But we're still trying to scope out. But I think the OpenSSF would be really useful as sort of a steward of some of this data, especially because some of it is we wouldn't want any data with PII in it, but some of it is bordering on user data, right? So like if we link different packages to the same user, even if we don't know who that user is, that's sort of semi-sensitive, and so having those having sort of good stewardship of that data would be really important. But I would love your review on that document in general, and then the overall thing I would like to hear from language ecosystems. Is this something vaguely you'd be interested in helping to support? We're hoping to start and keep it pretty lightweight, just like, you know, total downloads or something really easy would be really, really nice. And total numbers of packages would be really, really nice, just so we can have an at a glance comparison. What are the scales we're dealing with across ecosystems, and then longer run scope that up. So then I think I see a hand from Brian.
I just wanted to add from the Linux Foundation OpenSSF staff budget point of view. I mean, this is interesting to us as well, interesting to folks like LF Research, who I don't think we've yet set up a conversation, Zach, with you and Marina, and folks like Hillary Carter on our side, but would be interested in facilitating that. And in general, in having OpenSSF as a service to the public, act as a data steward, as a, you know, kind of the aggregator for this. So as you mentioned, there may be PII issues in some of this data. And so getting access to researchers, like there's just kind of some governance you want to put around that. And I think that's a role that we could usefully serve. And I haven't read the proposals specifically, but what you talk about aligns with things we've talked about. The key question, of course, is for everyone else on this call who has sources of data, is this interesting enough for you to, you know, be willing to contribute and be willing to normalize against some common kind of, you know, data structure, you know, progressively at least, and what would you want to see out as like potential research projects? You know, what are the kind of things that this could help solve for everybody if, you know, Zach and Marina and OpenSSF collaborated on this with all of you.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Dustin?
Yeah, I guess I had kind of a more logistical question. I see it called out in the doc that like IPI already has a data set that's public, and I mean, we don't really have any plans to change that. So would this data set essentially be a duplication and centralization, maybe like a normalization of all these data sets? Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, exactly. I think the plan is to have it start as pretty unstructured, just if you're willing to slog through it, if you have access, that all of that data is going to be there. But I don't think we'd be asking for anything more than what PyPI already publishes. And then, yeah, long run, I would love to see it in some kind of normalized format so that, you know, you could pretty quickly run, you know, comparative queries across ecosystems and kind of scale up some of those analyses. Does that answer the question? Cool. Yeah, so I think we're going to hold off on any specific action on that, other than I will request again, and I can send out in the Slack and so on a review from all of the language ecosystem folks to see if that kind of aligns with stuff you'd be willing to work with us on, and then probably once Marina is back at this meeting, I think we'll head it up. But and then Brian, I will follow up with you. I would love to chat with some of the LF Research folks.
Great.
Cool. Thanks, Zach. Sorry, Zach, any follow-up questions there? All right, handing it over to Yusuf or Jacques, I guess, on namespaces.
Joseph, do you want me to do this or do you want to do it? Oh, you're not coming through. There's no sound, unfortunately. Okay. I'll go ahead. I think we're having some trouble with the microphone. For those who don't know, Ruby Gems has a single global namespace for gems to be named in. The community is now talking about changing that so that there is the ability to namespace things and then have gems within those namespaces. And of course, you know, a lot of you already have that in your ecosystems. What we're particularly interested in is a couple of things. One would be any experiences to setting that up or transitioning, or, you know, sort of gotchas to do with namespaces. And the other thing that would be really helpful is how much should we care about Perl, like PURL, the package URL format, because that affects the exact sort of style or design that gets chosen for how you specify, you know, what the specificate, what's the term I'm looking for? The syntax for referring to the namespace in the package. Which one gets chosen affects how sort of nicely it plays with Perl. So definitely hop on over to that RFC, and if you have any feedback or input, that would be super helpful. Vicky.
Just a quick note that Perl PURL, although we should probably get the PERL folks in this group as well. But Perl is being, it is an important part of the upcoming SPDX 3.0. It's going to be one of the required types of links that you can make there in SPDX 3.0. They're being pretty specific about it. So if that's going to influence your choice at all to make life so much easier for SBOMs, then that's probably something you should be looking into.
Just type loudly so I can make a note. Be, I don't know, baked into SPDX.
I think baked into is a little too strong, but it'll be added.
Added. All right.
It's
So
going
more
to
of
be
a
heavily
homage.
supported.
Yeah, I have, I guess, one question about the pearls, which is I think there are a million ways that I think they would be super useful, and I am really excited about them, but I don't know how often I, as a human being, would be typing one. And so my understanding, Jacques, is that your choice here is going to affect how pleasant they are to work with, but not how possible they are to work with. Is that correct?
They're both the sort of the two current candidates are package at namespace and at namespace / package, the NPM style. And those play slightly differently with Perl, but because you can in a URL, you can URL encode. There's no impossibility. It's just how nice is it to copy and paste. Jason.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just aware of this now, and I wish I had gotten some time to look at it. So we have a lot of experience with that transition from namespace to non-namespace within data sets and ecosystems as well, from a sonotype perspective. And there are definitely gotchas, there. The Perl aspect is something we make heavy use of, and we're doing a lot of work on Central right now, and we're making heavy use of that on sort of a back end and even an API perspective, right? But to your point, we're not expecting users to directly interface with that, from a tooling perspective, I guess, right? So our APIs may support it or whatever, but we're not looking at changing Maven or Gradle or anything else and getting out of the namespace we have, but really just kind of trying to normalize, as we work with these ecosystems for SBOMs and that sort of thing, right? So we're investing pretty heavily in that from even Central perspective. Not that it should influence you at all, and I'll try to add some comments to this RFC as well over the next day or two with some experiences around transitioning namespaces. So
that would be awesome. Thank you. Miles.
So this is before my time working on NPM, but my understanding is that the scoping name that we have at scope / module was developed primarily for the way in which NPM resolves things onto disk and ensuring that there weren't conflicts at all. At as a character was one that we could use both for like our routing scheme as well as how we resolve things on disk. I have a slight preference for like scope and then name. That seems to make sense to me a lot more than name at scope, but I see how like name at scope is a little bit more like emails and domains. I think some consistency, if we could have it there, would be good, but not the end of the world. One thing that is worth throwing out, and it's a conversation that we're floating, but it has no real legs yet, would be, with NPM having scopes, do we want to like reconsider having a global namespace at all? And so this would be like beyond controversial to try to talk to the ecosystem about. Great names have like a huge value just from like an SEO perspective, which in itself is also, in my mind, part of the problem. And there's a huge cat and mouse problem that we deal with that, arguably only gets punted if you move to scopes, because you can typo squat a scope just like you can typo squat a package, but it does limit the problem space. But I think that if Ruby is going to explore this, I would really, really advocate for thinking about, if we're going to make this big of a change, how big of a change are you willing to really make? because a lot of the problems that we've seen, so for example, just a couple weeks ago, we saw a slew of squatting attacks where people were taking like the name of like something that was at scope / package and changing it to like scope - package, and publishing, you know, hundreds of packages, squatting things that were in namespaces. And we started kind of talking through like, okay, well, like, how can we protect against this? And we started getting, you know, vendors asking a question like, well, can you just make like it no other scope possible to be registered that has like my trademark name in it? And I don't know, it turtles pretty quickly. And so I can talk forever, so I'll stop, but just it does help with stuff. It punts things in some way, but I am leaning towards like scopes are better than global namespaces and wanting to maybe retire it. But I'm worried about pitchforks even for bringing it up on this call, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would definitely welcome your comments, or anyone from your team on that RFC to sort of talk about your experiences there. And I know you can't necessarily talk in public about what you're thinking about, so that's fine. Jacob.
Hey, so if people are willing to donate their time to look at other teams' RFCs and give feedback, the Rust community is also having an RFC about adding some kind of namespacing, probably not tied to another identity, probably tied to an existing package. If I have the package foo, then I can optionally grab everything that starts with foo. We're picking a separator, probably : bar. And then if you see the : you know that it was published by the same people as foo. Anyway, that's way more details. If people want to give feedback on ours as well, I would love it.
Interesting. One thing that came out with both Miles and Jacob was like a more general reservation than just the sort of the concept of the scope. One thing I saw on NuGet was that you could define scopes using globs, right? You could say I have everything from this point on belongs to me, so that and that was partly because NuGet also has like the package name is also the package name, so to speak. Like the package name when you do an import in C# is also the package name on NuGet. So it's similar, but not exactly like what like happens in Java in Maven Central. So I think the NuGet design is worth looking at. They thought pretty hard about it. I wish there were NuGet folks here. I know sometimes people have said that they know some NuGet folks, so here's your chance to prove it. I'm definitely interested in hearing their experiences too. But yeah, let's definitely look at each other's RFCs. Joseph, did I miss anything? Transition time. Oh, okay, that's a good point. So Joseph brings up in the chat that he's interested in like what kind of timing do you think makes sense? For example, to open scope, claiming temporarily only for big packages. So I think what Joseph is saying that, for example, Rails should get, first look at Rails / yeah, we all get approached by vendors. I know that feeling. Yeah, if anyone had any thoughts about that, like how you could sort of govern the process of the changeover or the introduction of namespaces, that would be helpful to avoid a land rush, basically.
Yeah, I'll chime in real quick. So PyPI is about to introduce support for organizations, which is long overdue. They're not namespaces, but there's definitely a relationship between an organization and a namespace. And that's how we're thinking of it right now. And to avoid a land rush, it is a paid feature that users will have to give real money to be able to use. And staff will have to approve the release of an organization, and then potentially that means the release of a namespace in the future. I also have a draft RFC, we call them PEPS, in progress for namespaces, not at the point where I can share right now, but it sounds like we're all sort of working on the same thing at the same time. So very interested to see some of the overlap here. Eddie?
Yeah, so I can't speak with authority on this, but when I was at AWS previously, ECR Public came out. And if you're not familiar, ECR Public is the Amazon's free container registry. They generate you a random namespace to get started with, and then you can apply for a special named namespace. And I'm pretty sure someone manually reviews that. But it's an interesting approach there.
I just want to check in. We have 10 minutes left, and Zach has 3 more things on the agenda. So I do want to get to at least some subset of those.
I
we okay
can
to
get
move
through
on?
them pretty quick if you have anything more.
No,
on
it's
this.
I think it's been really great feedback. And I'm looking forward to looking at the Rust RFC, the Python PEP when it's available, and also looking forward to feedback from folks. This has been really helpful. Thank you.
All right. Actually, this is maybe a good transition. At the risk of giving myself another essay homework assignment, would it be helpful to compile sort of, there's a bunch of concerns that have been articulated. It seems like many of these name spacing conversations are rehashing a lot of the same stuff over and over again. I'm wondering whether it would be useful to collate those into one place and sort of, there's the land rush stuff, there's the actual syntax stuff. There's a bunch of considerations that it seems you all are running into. I guess I volunteer myself to follow up with a couple of you all and ask if that would be helpful. And if the folks working, Dustin?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this was one of the original intentions of this survey is that we figure out what everyone is doing, and then we all work together to collate that. And we have a single document that describes a certain feature, what different systems have done, have learned, what everyone else is planning on doing. So I think if this is the first time we want to do that, by all means, yes, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, that's what this integrating SIG store document is becoming. Slowly. There's just trying to collect. Okay, here are all the decisions one would make as a package manager when thinking about security. Some of them are directly security related. Some of them are just features that users care about that are going to be affected by security. So I think that's in scopes for a lot of the work I've been doing already so far. So maybe I'll draft something there. And again, my work is by no means definitive. Feel free to rip it to shreds and so on. But yeah, which is a useful transition to, I, over the last couple of weeks, wrote about the problem of, for a given package with a given name, how do we decide who is allowed to publish that? And there's a bunch of possibilities in there. I'm hoping I captured most of them. I don't think I sufficiently articulated the pros and cons of each, but I would love, many of you have given me good feedback on that so far, and I would love any additional feedback you have. Yeah, I don't know that I have anything to discuss on that specifically at this meeting. So in the interest of making it out of this meeting on time, I'm going to propose we move on. Okay, I'll turn it over to myself. Earlier, we had discussed sort of keeping this meeting small-ish for now. It's obviously 20-odd people. It's not a tiny meeting, but there were, everyone knows someone, right, in this community, and there's a bunch of package managers that aren't represented. That long run we would love to see represented. And so what is the sort of, are we waiting on becoming an official working group as the sort of line for go tell all your friends, or is there a plan there? And I guess I want to ask Dustin specifically, because it seems like you might have thought about that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone.
Your sound is cut out, Dustin. I'm not sure why.
All right, how about now? Yeah, sorry, my earbud. Yeah, so we haven't explicitly been trying to keep the group small. I think we have given out some invites to folks that we want to see early in the process. I think it's fine. I mean, I think part of our announcement will be inviting the world to join. That's one of the explicit call to actions for that blog post. But yeah, if we have relationship people that we want to be here, like by all means, please invite them.
Awesome.
I think folks will. Oh,
Jacques,
sorry to cut you off. I think folks will take a look. If they decide it's valuable, they'll stick around, and if they don't, they won't. So I think it'll shake out itself. There might be sort of a pulse of folks showing up, and I'm hoping that they'll all discover that it's valuable work. But I'm not too fussed about the long term, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah. So then at least this is just for me. I think I'm going to wait until that blog post goes up, and then I have a bunch of folks I've been in contact with for other reasons who do this kind of stuff that I will email out that blog post and invite them at that point probably. Cool. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to myself again. So I am really excited to hear about Dustin's blog post. I really think we've been doing a bunch of cool stuff in this group, and I'm excited to share with the world. And I hadn't known about the blog post when I made this agenda item initially, so you've addressed it. But I guess I think it would be really cool to every month or so post some kind of update. Hey, here's what we've been up to. I don't know that it scales to have literally every package manager represented here and involved in every argument. And I don't know if that is I think this group should be producing things that are of interest to all package managers, regardless of whether they have the time to show up to these meetings and so on. And I think sort of informal communication is a great way of sort of kicking off that process. So I don't want to commit us to, or I don't need to commit us to anything, but I guess I'll probably follow up in a month and say, hey, let's share some of the cool stuff we've been working on, probably via the OpenSSF blog.
I like it.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I'll turn it back over to Dustin to wind things down.
How about now? All right. Well, microphone back. Yeah, I was just gonna say it'd be cool to see the integrating SigStore doc turned into a blog post that we can share externally, and some future thing on namespaces turned into a blog post. That's the kind of stuff I think would make a lot of sense to share more widely. In that, I don't want to call it a report, but just demonstration of what we've done. All right, that's everything on the agenda, and we got 3 minutes left. Anything else to add real quick? Any action items that we are missing? I'll fill in some extra stuff here as well, but cool. I think we're good. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks everyone that's new. Hope to see you next time, and take care.
Thanks.